Hi, I'm Jordan, 22, and the day my own mother screamed, "If you're so smart, then pay your own bills," was the day everything in my life flipped upside down. This story is intense, personal, and honestly still hurts to remember, so watch until the end to see how it all exploded. Before I dive in, hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from: New York, Texas, California, anywhere in the US. Let me paint you a picture of what my life looked like before everything fell apart. I was living at home, trying to juggle college classes during the day and working nights at a retail store that barely paid minimum wage. I thought I was doing the right thing, Staying home to save money, helping out where I could, trying to build a future while keeping expenses low. That's what responsible people do, right? That's what I kept telling myself every single day when I dragged myself out of bed at 6 in the morning. But here's the thing nobody tells you about living at home as an adult. Sometimes the rent you don't pay becomes the weapon used against you. Every single day. My mom had this way of making me feel small. It wasn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it was just a look, a sigh, a comment dropped casually over dinner that would stick in my chest like a knife. "Must be nice to have so much free time for studying," she'd say, as if I wasn't working 30 hours a week on top of a full-course load. "College kids these days think they're so special," she'd mutter when I try to talk about my classes or my dreams of getting into a better career field. I tried to help around the house. I really did. I'd buy groceries when I could afford it, I'd clean, I'd take care of my younger siblings, I'd drive people to appointments. But it was never enough. There was always something I wasn't doing right, always some way I was falling short of being a real adult in her eyes. The worst part? I believed her. I started to internalize this idea that because I lived under her roof, I didn't have the right to dream bigger, to want more, to believe I deserved respect. I was 22 years old, and I felt like I was 12, constantly seeking approval that would never come. The financial pressure in our house was suffocating. My mom worked hard, I'll give her that, but she wore it like a badge of honor that gave her the right to belittle everyone else. Every bill that came in, every expense, every little financial hiccup became a reason to remind me that I wasn't contributing enough. Never mind that I was paying for my own tuition, my own books, my own gas, my own phone. None of that counted, because I wasn't paying her. I remember one night, I came home exhausted from a closing shift at the store. It was almost midnight. I had an exam the next morning that I hadn't finished studying for. I walked in the door, and she was sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of bills spread out in front of her, and she looked at me with this expression, part anger, part disgust, and said, "Must be nice to come home and not worry about any of this." I didn't even respond. What could I say? I just went to my room and cried while trying to cram for an exam on 3 hours of sleep. That was my normal. That was my life. And I kept thinking that if I just worked harder, studied harder, proved myself more, maybe she'd finally see me as someone worthy of respect. Maybe she'd finally be proud of me. I was so wrong. The day it all exploded started like any other terrible day. I'd been at school all morning, then worked a 6-hour shift, and I came home around 8 in the evening. I was exhausted, mentally drained, physically depleted. All I wanted was to eat something and maybe get some homework done before passing out. I walked in and immediately felt the tension. My mom was in the living room, and I could tell by the energy that something was already wrong. I tried to slip past quietly, but she called out to me, "Jordan, we need to talk about this phone bill." My phone bill. The one I paid myself every single month. The one that was on the family plan, but that I covered my portion of without fail. "What about it?" I asked, genuinely confused. "It's higher this month. Did you go over on data?" I pulled out my phone and checked. I was well within my limits. "No, I didn't. I'm nowhere near my cap. Maybe someone else." "Don't start." She cut me off, her voice rising. "Don't you dare try to blame your siblings. They're kids. You're the one who's always on that phone, probably wasting time instead of doing something productive." The accusation was so unfair it took my breath away. "Mom, I use my phone for school. For work. I literally just showed you I didn't go over." "You think you're so smart, don't you?" She stood up now, and I could see that look in her eyes. The one that meant this wasn't really about the phone bill. This was about everything else she'd been holding in, every resentment, every frustration with her own life that she was about to dump on me. Walking around here like you're better than everyone else because you go to college. Well, let me tell you something. I never said I was better than anyone. The words burst out of me before I could stop them. I was so tired of being her verbal punching bag. So tired of taking the blame for everything wrong in her life. And that's when she screamed it. The words that would change everything. If you think you're so grown and smart, then pay your own bills. The silence that followed was deafening. She was breathing hard, her face red with anger. I just stood there, frozen, feeling like I'd been slapped across the face. My siblings had gone quiet in their rooms. The whole house seemed to hold its breath. I felt humiliation wash over me like ice water. Here I was, 22 years old, being screamed at like a child, being told I wasn't adult enough, wasn't contributing enough, wasn't enough, period. She wasn't done. You want to act independent? You want to talk back to me in my house? Then get out and see how easy you have it here. See how far your little college degree gets you when you're trying to pay rent and utilities and food and everything else. You have no idea what the real world is like. Then she turned and walked to her bedroom, slamming the door so hard the pictures on the wall shook. I stood there in that living room, shaking, tears streaming down my face that I couldn't stop. And something inside me broke. Not broke down, broke open. Because in that moment of complete humiliation, something crystallized with perfect clarity.
Fine.
I'll pay my own bills. I'll do exactly what you told me to do. And I'll never, ever give you the satisfaction of seeing me fail. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my desk with a notebook, and I started planning. If she wanted me to prove I could make it on my own, then that's exactly what I was going to do. If you're still watching and haven't subscribed yet, why not? Seriously, we put so much heart into these stories. Hit subscribe, or tell us in the comments why you won't. The next morning, I woke up different. The pain was still there. God, it hurt so much, but it had transformed into something else. Determination. Fury. A burning need to prove that I was more capable than she'd ever given me credit for. I made a list of everything I needed to do. First, I needed more income. My retail job wasn't going to cut it if I wanted to move out and support myself completely. So I started looking. I applied to every job posting I could find that paid better. I updated my resume. I reached out to people from school who might know of opportunities. At the same time, I started researching every scholarship, grant, and financial aid option available for my remaining tuition. I wasn't going to give up on my degree. That would be letting her win. But I needed to make sure I could afford it without any family help. I picked up extra shifts at my current job. Every single shift they'd let me take, I took it. If someone needed coverage, I was there. If there was overtime available, I grabbed it. I was exhausted constantly, running on caffeine and spite, but I didn't care. Every dollar I earned went straight into a savings account I'd opened specifically for this purpose. An account my mother didn't know about. Here's what nobody tells you about being underestimated. It gives you a special kind of power. Because I wasn't proving anything to anyone, I was moving in silence. My mom thought her words had put me in my place. She thought I'd slink around the house defeated, maybe apologize, maybe beg for her approval again. Instead, I was building an escape plan. 3 weeks after the fight, I got a call back from a tech company I'd applied to. It was an entry-level position, but it paid almost double what I was making in retail, and it had benefits. Real benefits. Health insurance. Paid time off. A 401k. I went to that interview and I crushed it. I talked about my skills, my work ethic, my ability to learn quickly. And they hired me on the spot. I wanted to scream with joy, but I kept it quiet. I gave my 2 weeks' notice at the retail store and told my mom I was just shifting to a different part-time job to work around my class schedule better. She barely looked up from her phone when I told her. The new job was incredible. Challenging, yes, but incredible. I was learning actual career skills, working with people who treated me like a capable adult, and most importantly, I was making real money. For the first time in my life, I wasn't scraping by paycheck to paycheck. I started apartment hunting. Nothing fancy. I knew I needed to be smart about this. I looked for affordable places near public transportation, studios or one-bedrooms in safe neighborhoods that wouldn't eat up all my income. I calculated and recalculated my budget 100 times. Rent, utilities, internet, food, gas, insurance, tuition payments. I mapped out every single expense. At home, I became a ghost. I was polite, quiet, stayed out of my mom's way. I kept contributing to household groceries when asked, kept doing chores, kept up the appearance of the cowed daughter she expected. But inside, I was counting down days. I found a place. A small studio apartment about 20 minutes from work and 30 minutes from campus. It wasn't much, maybe 400 square feet, but it was mine. Or, it would be mine. I filled out the application, provided pay stubs from my new job, gave references. And then I waited. During this time, I also got notification that I'd been approved for 2 scholarships I'd applied for months earlier. Between those and my new salary, I could cover my tuition completely. I actually cried when I read those acceptance emails. Not sad tears, triumphant ones. The apartment approved me. I had a move-in date. I started buying essentials little by little, towels, dishes, a cheap mattress I found on sale. I stored everything at a friend's place so my mom wouldn't see. I was so close now. So close to freedom. My mom had no idea. She was completely oblivious to the fact that her daughter was about to disappear from under her roof. She'd still make her little comments. When are you going to get serious about your future? You can't live here forever, you know. And I just nod and agree and think, just wait. The satisfaction I felt wasn't about revenge. It was about something deeper. It was about proving to myself that I was capable, that her words didn't define me, that I could do exactly what she'd mockingly told me to do, and I could do it well. I moved out on a Saturday. I told my mom I was going to spend the weekend at a friend's place to work on a group project. She didn't question it. She was used to me being gone. What she didn't know was that I was loading everything I owned into my friend's truck and moving it to my new apartment. The feeling of closing the door to my own place for the first time was indescribable. I sat on my new mattress in my empty studio and just breathed. Free air. My air. In my space. That I was paying for. With my own money.
From my own job.
I didn't tell my mom immediately. I waited. I went to work, went to classes, lived my life. When I needed to grab more of my belongings, I'd stop by the house when she wasn't home. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I just needed time to adjust to my new reality before facing hers. It took about 2 weeks before she started calling. At first, the calls were casual. Where have you been? Are you coming home for dinner? I gave vague answers. Said I was busy with school and work. She seemed annoyed but not concerned. Then the tone started to change. Jordan, we need to talk about bills. Your portion of the phone bill is due. Jordan, I need you to pick up your siblings from school this week. Jordan, where have you been? You can't just disappear without telling anyone. I kept my responses brief. Paid what I legitimately owed for the time I'd been on the family phone plan, but nothing extra. Told her I couldn't help with transportation because of my work schedule. But I didn't tell her the truth yet. Here's what I didn't expect. Without my contributions to groceries, without my occasional help with utility costs, without my free labor watching my siblings or doing household tasks, things got tight at home. Real tight. Real fast. My mom had gotten used to me helping without really acknowledging it. All those times she'd said I didn't contribute enough. Turns out I'd been contributing more than she realized. The grocery bills went up because I wasn't supplementing them anymore. She had to pay for after-school care for my siblings because I wasn't there to watch them. She had to handle things I'd quietly been taking care of. The calls became more frequent. More urgent. Jordan, I really need you to come home. We need to talk. Jordan, this is serious. Call me back. Jordan, why are you avoiding us? I wasn't ready yet. I needed to be sure I could handle everything on my own first. I needed to be standing on completely solid ground before I faced her. Because I knew when I told her the truth, there would be an explosion. 1 month after I moved out, she showed up at my job. I was at my desk when the receptionist called me. Jordan, there's someone here to see you. Says she's your mother? My stomach dropped. I went to the lobby, and there she was, looking stressed and angry and worried all at once. "We need to talk. Now." I told my supervisor I needed to take my break early, and we went outside. "What is going on with you?" she demanded. "You're never home. You don't answer my calls. Your room looks like you haven't slept there in weeks. Talk to me." And I realized she still didn't get it. She thought I was acting out. She thought this was teenage rebellion from her adult daughter. She had no idea that I'd actually done what she'd screamed at me to do. This was the moment. The moment I'd been building toward. Real quick, if this story has you hooked, don't scroll without subscribing. I promise the ending will shock you. I looked at my mother standing there in the parking lot of my workplace, and I felt a strange calm wash over me. This was it. The moment where everything would come out into the open. "Let's go somewhere we can actually talk," I said. "There's a coffee shop around the corner. I have 30 minutes. We walked in silence. The tension between us was thick enough to cut with a knife. She kept glancing at me like she was trying to figure out what had changed, what was different about me. I wasn't the same person who'd stood in her living room crying 6 weeks ago. That person felt like a stranger now. We sat down at a corner table. She didn't even order anything, just folded her hands on the table and stared at me. "I'm worried about you," she started, but her tone wasn't worried. It was accusatory. "You've been acting strange, distant. Your siblings ask about you. I don't know what's going on, but..." I moved out. The words hung in the air between us. She blinked at me, processing. "What?" "I moved out. 5 weeks ago. I have my own apartment. That's why I haven't been home. Because I don't live there anymore." I watched the emotions play across her face. Confusion, disbelief, then anger. "You what? Without even discussing it with me? Without telling anyone? You told me to pay my own bills," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was pounding. "That's what I'm doing." "That's not, Jordan. You can't just... Do you have any idea how irresponsible this is? You can't afford to live on your own. You're still in school. You're going to come crawling back in a month when you realize." "I got a new job," I interrupted. "At a tech company. I'm making $43,000 a year with full benefits. I've been there for 6 weeks and my supervisor already talked to me about a promotion track." She stared at me. "I also got 2 scholarships that cover the rest of my tuition. My rent is $850 a month for a studio. I've budgeted for all my expenses. Utilities, food, transportation, insurance, everything. I have an emergency fund. I'm not struggling, Mom. I'm thriving." The look on her face was something I'll never forget. It was like she couldn't reconcile what I was saying with who she thought I was. In her mind, I was still the kid who needed her permission for everything, who couldn't possibly make it without her roof over my head. "You should have told me," she finally said, and her voice cracked a little. "You should have talked to me about this." And that's when the anger I'd been holding back finally burst through. "Like you talked to me before you screamed at me to pay my own bills? Like you talked to me before you told me I was worthless and ungrateful? Like you talked to me before you spent years making me feel like I was a burden in my own home?" My voice was rising and people were starting to look over, but I didn't care anymore. "I tried to talk to you, Mom. For years. Every time I tried to share my dreams or my goals or ask for support, you shut me down. You made me feel small. You told me my degree was worthless, my ambitions were stupid, my contributions didn't matter. So yeah, I stopped talking to you. I stopped trying to get your approval. And I started building a life where I didn't need it." She was crying now, which I hadn't expected, real tears streaming down her face. "I didn't mean, I was trying to motivate you, to push you to be independent. I didn't want you to end up stuck like I was. By making me feel worthless? That was your motivation strategy. I didn't know what else to do." Her voice broke completely. "I was terrified you'd end up dependent on someone else, stuck in a bad situation with no way out. I thought if I pushed you hard enough, you'd develop the strength to stand on your own. But I pushed too hard. I said things I didn't mean. Jordan, I'm so sorry. And here's the thing about anger. Sometimes it burns so hot for so long that when someone finally gives you the apology you've been waiting for, you don't know what to do with it. I sat there looking at my mother, this woman who'd caused me so much pain, and I saw something I'd never let myself see before. She was broken too. Her harshness came from her own fears, her own failures, her own pain that she'd never dealt with. It didn't excuse what she'd done. It didn't make the words hurt any less. But it made her human in a way I'd never allowed her to be. "You told me to pay my own bills," I said quietly. "And I did. But here's what you need to understand. That wasn't punishment for me. It was liberation. For the first time in my life, I'm not living in fear of your criticism. I'm not second-guessing every decision wondering if you'll approve. I'm just living, building a life I'm proud of. And I did it because you pushed me away hard enough that I had to learn to stand on my own." "I never wanted to push you away," she whispered. "But you did. And now we both have to figure out what comes next." We sat in that coffee shop for another 20 minutes. My break had long since ended, but I texted my supervisor that I needed a few more minutes for a family emergency. She said, "Take your time." My mom asked about my apartment, my job, my classes. Really asked, like she was trying to see me as the adult I'd become instead of the child she remembered. I answered honestly, but carefully. I wasn't ready to let my guard down completely. "Can I see it?" she asked. "Your apartment?" I hesitated. Letting her into my space felt vulnerable in a way I wasn't sure I was ready for. But I also knew that if we were going to move forward, I couldn't keep her completely locked out. "Not today," I said. "But maybe soon." "I need some time, Mom." "What you said to me, the way you treated me, that doesn't just go away because you apologized. I appreciate the apology. I really do. But I need space to heal from it." She nodded, wiping at her eyes with a napkin. "I understand. I need you to know that I'm proud of you. I know I never said it before. But watching you sit here and tell me about everything you've accomplished, everything you've built for yourself, Jordan, I'm so proud of you." The words I'd wanted to hear my whole life. And they felt both like a balm and like salt in a wound. Because I'd done all of this without her support. I'd built this success from the ashes of her criticism. Her pride now felt almost irrelevant compared to the pride I'd developed in myself. "Thank you," I said. "That means something." We exchanged phone numbers again, even though she'd had mine all along. This felt like a fresh start. A reset. "I should get back to work," I said, standing up. She stood too. For a moment, I thought she might try to hug me, but she didn't. She just looked at me with this expression of mixed sadness and admiration. "You're going to do amazing things," she said. "I already am," I replied. Over the following weeks and months, we slowly rebuilt something. Not the mother-daughter relationship we'd had before. That was too damaged, too toxic to resurrect. But something new, something more honest. I let her visit my apartment. She brought a housewarming gift, a plant she said was easy to take care of, unlike family relationships. It was the first joke she'd made in years that actually made me laugh. I started joining family dinners occasionally. Not every week, but sometimes. I set boundaries. Clear ones. When she started to slip into old patterns of criticism, I called it out immediately. "That's not helpful, Mom. If you can't speak to me respectfully, I'll leave." And I meant it. The first time I actually got up and left mid-dinner, she got the message. My siblings were confused by the whole situation at first, but eventually they adjusted. My younger sister even told me she thought it was cool that I had my own place and asked if she could stay over sometimes. I said yes. I wanted to be the kind of support system for her that I'd never had. Here's what I learned through all of this. Paying my own bills wasn't revenge. It was never about getting back at my mother or proving her wrong. It was about proving something to myself. It was about discovering that I was capable of more than I'd ever believed. That I could take the worst moment of my life and transform it into a catalyst for growth. The anger I felt, and God, there was so much anger, became fuel. It powered me through late nights and early mornings. It pushed me to apply for jobs I didn't think I was qualified for. It gave me the courage to sign a lease and take a risk on myself when nobody else would. But eventually, the anger cooled. It had to. Because holding on to that level of fury forever would have poisoned me just as much as her words had. I didn't forgive and forget. I'm not built that way. But I forgave and remembered. I remembered what it felt like to be small. And I used that memory to make sure I never made anyone else feel that way. My mom and I will never have a perfect relationship. Too much damage was done. But we have an honest one now. She knows that my love and presence in her life are not guaranteed. They're earned. And I know that her approval isn't something I need to survive. If you made it this far, you need to subscribe. Who watches this long without supporting the channel? Hit subscribe and join the family. So that's my story. The day my mother told me to pay my own bills was the day I stopped being her daughter in the way I'd always been and started being my own person. It hurt. It still hurts sometimes. But it also set me free in a way nothing else could have. I'm 22 years old. I have my own apartment. I'm paying my own bills, every single one of them. I'm finishing my degree on my own dime. I'm building a career I'm excited about. And I'm doing it all on my terms. If you're in a situation where someone is making you feel less than, where someone is using their power over you to diminish your dreams, I want you to know something. You are more capable than they tell you. You are stronger than you feel right now. And sometimes the people who are supposed to lift you up are the ones who push you down the hardest. But that doesn't define your ceiling. That defines their limitations, not yours. Use the pain. Use the anger. Use the doubt they planted in you and turn it into determination. Prove them wrong by proving yourself right. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this story. Do you think I was too harsh? Do you think my mom deserved a second chance? Have you been in a similar situation? Drop your comments below. And if you have suggestions for stories you'd like to hear next, let me know. This channel is about all of us who've had to become our own heroes. Thanks for watching. And remember, sometimes the best revenge is building a life so good that their opinions become irrelevant.